And this actually on TikTok, this was going viral on TikTok because she was talking about temptation. It was a very interesting conversation. And she essentially said that she would have gotten divorced if it had not been for this. And I want to show you what this was that she was talking about.
What do you think, babe, would have happened? Because you a good point on the 26 years. Mm-hmm. This is where the relatability, and I know it's somebody who is sitting there watching saying, I wonder what would have happened if they got their money when they was 23, if they had their success when they was 24.
We wouldn't be sitting at this table.
So they're basically talking about like temptation and stuff like that. And like I said, I'd never seen her podcast before, but they're basically talking about temptation. And she was talking about temptation as it relates to money and finances. So that's what they're talking about is what do you think would happen if you would have got the money early? So if she would have had the same success early that she has now, what do you think would have happened to your marriage?
We wouldn't be sitting here. My son wouldn't have been born.
And that's
I don't think we would have made it.
And I don't feel no kind of way about that.
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
And I'll tell you why.
Like experience living is how you get to a point to where you can have a conversation about temptation and be realistic about it. But if you have not lived and understand that change, how we talk about change is necessary, change is the inevitable, change, it's like it's going to happen. And temptation is a part of that. And a lot of people are going to succumb to it in a young age.
The temptation, yeah, maybe for you, right? Because you were, as a young man. But I think if success had came that early, the temptation for me would have been, I'm more tempted to leave because I know I can survive on my own.
Yeah.
Right? There were times that we stayed together because we couldn't survive without each other. This is the truth. It won't love, it won't, it was like, dang, I can't afford to leave. We gonna have to work it out.
We stuck.
And throughout that time, we just fell back.
That might be one of the realest things I've ever heard before. She said there's times that we stayed together because we could not afford to be without one another.
Yeah, maybe for you, right? Because you were, as a young man. But I think if success had came that early, the temptation for me would have been, I'm more tempted to leave because I know I can survive on my own.
Yeah.
Right? There were times that we stayed together because we couldn't survive without each other. This is the truth. It won't love, it won't, it was like, dang, I can't afford to leave. We gonna have to work it out.
We stuck.
And throughout that time, we just fell back in love.
Yeah.
But there were times when we absolutely were not in love with each other. We loved each other, but being in love is completely different.
Yes.
There were times we did not like each other. There was times that you wouldn't even know we was married.
Yep, walking by each other.
But we could not afford to leave each other. Mm-hmm. Listen, you couldn't even afford it.
She said we stuck.
He's tempted.
So what if, but with that being said, when you say that, if you throw temptations right in the mix of that.
Yeah.
Where like y'all on one of them seasons in your marriage where it's like, hey, I don't like him. And I don't know if I'm in love with him.
Yeah.
And then temptation comes knocking on the door.
So I'm like I was about to sneeze. Go ahead.
You know what's crazy about this conversation? It's real because I don't know actually, you know what? The world has done a very good job of putting this heavy negative connotation on marriage. You see what it is. Like that's why do you think they do these bachelor parties and these bachelorette parties? It's because it's like, yo, sis, This your last time to be free before you about to be, tied down. Go crazy, sis. Or same thing, like, hey, bruh, you're not gonna be able to do nothing, bruh. You ain't gonna have no fun. This is it. You got this one for life. Let's go crazy. That's why they have these parties. And that's why there's so much of this negative connotation. The world has done an awesome job of putting this negative connotation on marriage. But you know what? There is some truth to that. Marriage is not going to be easy all of the time. And I think we would be foolish to think otherwise, because just look at relationships in general. Relationships in general are not easy, right? So when you choose to settle down with the person and marry them, enter into a covenant before God with this person, it's not going to be easy, right? But that was never the promise. That was never the promise. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be hard times. There's going to be times where you don't like that person. There's going to be times where that person don't like you. There's going to be struggles. You add children into the equation, there's going to be problems. There's going to be hardships. There's going to be heartache. What do you do during those times? What do you do during those seasons? How do you respond? How do you respond? Do you respond by isolating? Do you respond by going back to your vices? Or do you respond by going to God and figuring that out as a unit and trusting God that he can restore any love lost in that situation? How do you respond? Marriage is sacrificial. It's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice a lot of yourself for that person. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. So I appreciate them for being honest and pretty much saying like, yo, if we would have had the money that we had then that we have now, we wouldn't be together, because the only reason we were together was because we couldn't afford to make it work without one another. We stuck. But it was a blessing in that moment that they did not have those resources, because they wouldn't be here today. And she even said they grew in love in those moments. They fell out of love in those moments, and then they found their way back and grew in love and ultimately became stronger in those moments. So those seasons of struggle that you're going through in your marriage, we can change our perspective and we can trust God in those moments, because he can and he will work those moments out. You know? Let's see what else they have to say. I forget what else they say. Let's see.
That goes hand in hand with what I said at the start of the conversation. Mm-hmm. You have those moments. We have less of those moments now, right?
Yeah.
Ooh. But what I know now at 45 that I did not know at 25 is how to eliminate the possibility of temptation coming in during those moments. Yeah. And life teaches you that. So, and that's what I was getting at when I was saying, like, it's how you set yourself up. If you are exploring the places where temptation can present itself and you don't understand that marriage is those ups and downs, those seasons where it's like, hey, look, we ain't on the same accord, and you still going to locations where temptation is right there to fulfill something, or you going to a place to where you could be subject to it.
You're setting yourself up.
Then you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
And if you think that every marriage is supposed to be 26 years of, can't believe you said there was a point where you didn't love me, then I don't believe.
You ain't living in truth.
You ain't
we telling y'all the truth.
Yeah, you ain't understanding what this thing is.
We were together since we were 19, right? Before we even knew who we were.
What?
Right? I ain't know who I was. He didn't know who he was. So we didn't even get to know who each other was, because how am I know him if he don't know him? Right? I did.
But you think you know who you are.
I thought I did, right?
You think you know. And you think you know what you want.
But I think that in that early age, to your point, if success had came and we had money to do whatever we wanted to do, do I think some type of way we could have found our way back to each other? Maybe, we'll never know.
Yeah.
But I do know without money, I was often tempted to go back home. I was often tempted to be like, dang, I could go back home to North Carolina. I could go back to my dad's house, or I could figure it out, in my mind, in the back of my head, like, man,
And it ain't
because
just
family is also temptation. Safety is temptation. But they also can make it messy, your relationship, if you let them in. And so, even though I was tempted to, like, I'm gonna just call my dad, I'm gonna call my mama, right? When those times were so bad, I didn't even fall into that temptation. Now, did I call and maybe complain or talk about stuff and gratefully
talk straight trash about me.
had somebody to
Yeah, I got y'all. I seen Nessie. Nessie. Yeah, my wife texted me. She said that Nessa put the link in the Patreon. So, after we watch this, we'll go and we'll watch it. This is not too much longer, so we'll go there afterwards.
talk me down off the ledge in many of those seasons. So I was able to avoid everything I was thinking. Like, not saying mistakes, but decisions of just quitting altogether. But I do think that we have to remember that sometimes our family is also temptation. Going backwards is also temptation. Like, those are ideas that you think it's better. Because temptation is thinking something is better than what you already have, in my opinion. Like, or you're being tempted for something that you think is going to make you feel good.
She said temptation is thinking something is better than what you already had. That's a pretty solid definition, in my opinion. Because you think about it, who's doing the tempting? The devil is doing the tempting. There's nothing that the devil has that is even remotely better than what God has. But we get tricked into thinking that it is for a brief moment in time, and then we fall into it. Knowing all along that what God had for us was better. It might not feel better in the moment, but stop with the feelings. Let the feelings go. Let the feelings go. Let the feelings go. God said he's going to give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. It doesn't make sense. Why is this person so peaceful? Why do they have so much peace? Eternally, why do they have so much peace when all chaos is going on? Oh, because God's hand is on their life. That's always there. That never left. But you left. You left and you went into the temptation. And you fell for the temptation. You fell for the lie that what Satan had for you in the moment was better than what God has for you.
In the moment. So I think we must remember those parts of temptation as well. But that success, I'm glad it didn't come. Also, I would be broke right now. If it came in the 20s, maybe we wouldn't have it.
Oh, no.
You'd be broke.
I don't know.
You'd be broke.
I like that. I like that. I like that. It's not going to be easy. Marriage is great. It's incredible. It's awesome. It's amazing. It's not always going to be easy, though. But you know what's funny? Like, I don't know. Nothing in life worth obtaining, worth having, it never comes easy, typically. Typically, it never comes easy. But yet we expect that our marriage is always going to be perfect and that it's not going to have ups and downs. Of course it is. But how do you respond? Just like he was saying, how do you respond? if you're hanging around those places of temptation, and we all have those places of temptation, and it could be a physical place, it could be a mindset, it could be a place in your mind that you get to that leads you into temptation. If you're hanging around those places while you are actively in conflict with your spouse, you're probably going to end up in that temptation. And that's not going to help reconcile whatever is going on between the two of you. Assuming that that is something that can be repaired, right? So, shout out to the Tabitha Brown podcast. That was pretty dope.